So welcome. We are calling a first meeting of the Outdoor Learning Leaders of Philadelphia, trying to gather like-minded people from throughout the area to help think about, celebrate what's going well, problem solve around what's been difficult, and recognize this unique moment in history where we may have the power to have a bigger effect or wider effect on outdoor learning in our area in general. I'm Wendy Furry. It's wonderful to meet you and have you here. I'm from GeoVentures, Inc. We are a business that is all about connecting learners to nature, and we are trying hard to find like-minded people in the area to expand our reach and expand our ability to impact during this era. And let's have Tom introduce himself first, and then what we'll do is introduce our whole room.
Good morning, I'm Tom Mcmanus. I'm the head of school at Montgomery School in Chester Springs, which is a beautiful 60-acre pre-K to 8 campus with a variety of different environments that our students learn in, and outdoor learning is a large and growing component of what we do. We strive to produce young people or help young people on the path to be bold, creative, and compassionate. And you can learn all of that outdoors. In my career, kind of the traditional definition of the classroom has always been inadequate, that we need to break down the walls and get out to do relevant work that we can touch. So I'm really excited to be partnering with Wendy and with Jim and with GeoVentures, and this is a co-production, and we hope that it's the beginning of a conversation with all of us as collaborators. So welcome.
All right, if you don't mind, we're going to take a minute and introduce the amazing people in this room. Everybody is coming from an organization out there pushing to get people outdoors. Every person in this room was selected because they are a powerhouse. So I'm really glad that we're going to get a chance to get to know each other. Would you please share your name, the organization that you come from, and one sentence, a nice crisp sentence rather than a diatribe, about an outdoor place that is really meaningful to you, some place that you go in the everyday. This doesn't need to be the peak of the mountain you climbed 8 years ago. This can be your everyday spot. So let's start with squares. Julie, would you be willing to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Julie Dadelow. I am the lower school science teacher at Montgomery School with Tom. And so how he described our campus is beautiful. We do have like very different ecosystems and biomes that I walk the children around every day. And then my outdoor places just extend to walking my dog through the woods too.
Excellent. Cassie?
Hi, I'm Cassie Romero. I've been part of GeoVentures since its inception. I'm married to Jim, and this is our little Gwen here. I actually live in State College, Pennsylvania, and I work on campus at the Penn State University as a pre-K teacher. We have an emergent curriculum and a natural playground outside, and I just love taking the kids outside and incorporating our environment out there into the classroom. And I love going to the Arboretum on campus because they have a children's garden and they're currently working on a pollination garden.
Thank you. Molly?
I'm Molly Smerl. I work for Natural Lands, which is primarily a land conservation organization, but we also work on connecting people to nature. And specifically, I work at Crow's Nest Preserve, which is one of our preserves that has kids programming aimed at getting kids outside and playing and dirty in nature. And I also happen to live at Crow's Nest, so my everyday outdoor place is a 700+ nature preserve that's right outside my door. So I'm kind of lucky that way.
Ann Preston.
Thanks for bringing me here, Wendy. My name is Annie. I usually go by Annie, and I haven't figured out how to change that on Zoom. But I am a co-owner of a pretty new business called Garden Ed. And we build and maintain educational landscapes at schools that are, food producing and pollinator gardens, and do programming around that. But I'm really focused on bringing the young people in my community outdoors, and especially diversifying outdoor work and leadership in this area. And so I love going to the Wissahickon near my house, and it's just a super accessible place where people from all walks of life, have an outdoor classroom for free.
Thank you. And I just want to welcome a couple of people who have just trickled in. We're just going around and doing introductions. Welcome to our talk today. We're sharing our name, our organization, and one place, an everyday place that is special to us when we go outdoors. Ann Ward.
Hi, everybody. I am Anne, and I am currently the nature kindergarten teacher at the Schuylkill Center Nature Preschool and Kindergarten, located just outside of Philadelphia. I would invite you to imagine a meadow that is sunlit every morning, and that is the base camp for a group of 10 beautiful souls that come to us as 5- and 6-year-olds, and all of the wonderful ways that we have connected and grown and learned has truly been about our relationship this year with the land and with one another.
Thank you. Jacob?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Jake, and I am the 5th and 6th grade science teacher at Montgomery School. And my everyday outdoor place is probably the woods adjacent to my backyard, taking my dogs for walks and birding through the woods.
Jeff?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Fetterman. I work at, sorry, my dog's chewing a big bone right now next to me. He likes to make noise when I'm on these meetings. I work at Germantown Friends School. I'm the director of experiential education and taking kids outside and getting them out of the room, experiencing things. I also am a longtime canoe guide in Northern Ontario to Montgomery, Canada. When the borders open. My outdoor space would have to be Hickory Run, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour and a half north. And for years and years, I've been part of a program taking kids up there and just watching them learn lessons and struggle and get really wet and dirty and stretch their comfort zones. And it has to be one of my favorite places in the world.
Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Watroud. I'm the brand new assistant director at the Schuylkill Center Nature Preschool and Kindergarten. I've lived in Pennsylvania 2.5 weeks. Before that, I was at the Aldo Leopold Nature Preschool in Madison, Wisconsin. So right now, I am really just enjoying exploring the Schuylkill Center and all the beautiful places there. And I've been working with lots of different classes, and just having the kids show me what they love about the place and exploring with them has just been wonderful. And I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
Thank you and welcome. We're really glad that you're here in Philly with us now. And welcome, Francis. We're just doing a quick round of introductions, sharing names, our organizations, and a place that's special to us nearby, an everyday place. Aaron? Ready?
That would be me. Right. All right. Hello. My name is Aaron Gross. I work at Briarbush Nature Center. I'm an environmental educator, but I am currently gaining more responsibilities with summer camp, leading some camps as well as grounds and doing some land management stuff there. As we have a new director, Mark, who was the former land manager, is now moved up to the director. So we're filling in some spots and holes and jobs. One of my outdoor places, I guess, it's kind of hard to describe, but I'm going to say anywhere that I could see the sky. I love the night sky and seeing the stars and interpreting the stars, but I also enjoy looking at the clouds, like painting a picture, a crisp blue, background with the white puffy clouds. I had that last week, and I was just like, this is it. This is the nature place that I really enjoy. And I could plan for programs and outdoors if it's going to rain. So anything with the weather, it's just enjoyable to see the skyline, just to see the sky.
Thank you. Bree.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bree Barton, and I'm the garden educator at the Philadelphia School. An everyday outdoor place. Well, I think I'm gonna have to go with my little yard that is like my new forever home. My husband and I just bought a house in September, and we've got fruit trees growing that we planted. And I love just like tending to this tiny little place and watching birds arrive and bugs arrive and fruit arrive. It's right here outside my door.
Thank you. And Frances, welcome. Are you ready to introduce yourself?
I think so. I'm Frances Hoover. I'm executive director at Smith Memorial Playground and Playhouse. And I'm going to call that my favorite outdoor place.
Fantastic. Forte? You're on the move, but.
On the move. I hope you can hear me. I'm Forte. I currently teach 5th grade at the Philadelphia School. Previously Spanish and bilingual classrooms, Outward Bound, and I love my porch right now. What Erin was saying, I get a great view of the night sky, and it's cool enough at night that the mosquitoes aren't totally eating me up yet. So it's been really sweet to just spend as much time as possible on my porch.
Thank you. And Virginia, I'm not sure if you're on the move as well, but are you able to introduce?
Yeah, I'm here.
You are.
I'm here. Hi, and I can say I was recently on Forte's porch, and I will second the fact that it's magical. My name is Virginia Friedman, and I taught for many years at the Philadelphia School with Wendy, and now am doing consulting with the Philadelphia School and other organizations. I'm on the board with Frances at Smith's new Urban Nature Preschool. So it's super exciting. Seeing the new possibilities that are coming up around urban ecology. And I also work with a program at Belmont Charter High School. My current favorite place is the Boxer Trail, which goes around the dairy fields in Fairmount Park behind Ormiston Mansion and some others. And it's just spectacular to be in the middle of a city, yet completely removed. So I love that trail right now.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. We know we took a little extra time to do this, but I think that half of the power of why we're here is this group of, like I know we're recording, but like total badasses in terms of outdoor education. So it's really important that we're that we take a second and meet each other. And so throughout today, our plan is to try to balance a little bit of more intimate conversations in smaller groups on topics that are close to our hearts, as well as a little bit of more expansive thinking as a whole group. Anybody have any questions before we get started? No? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to take a moment to frame being together and why we put out an invitation to call you here and sort of unite in conversation about what's going on. So I just really want to thank you all for giving your time, for being here this morning, and for taking a chance on something new. So we've said I am Wendy Furry, head of outdoor learning for GeoVentures Inc. And I've been working closely this year with Tom Mcmanus, the head of Montgomery School. And we have been floored by what can be accomplished with a partnership between only one business and one school in strengthening our drive and ability to bring more outdoor learning opportunities to children. Inspired by this, we've cast the net wider. So we are so excited to be here today in this room beside businesses, schools, nature centers, incubators, educators, all divided by diverse industries, but united in a common mission. So first, to just acknowledge that this group has been through a year like no other. And many of us whose work, whose central and essential work is about organizing gatherings of people, and that often was our critical funds as well. We've gone through experiences that have tested our strengths. Maybe for some of us brought out the question, can our organizations survive in these conditions? And that doesn't even begin to touch what each of us has gone through personally. But to use a metaphor that I think will be on point for this crowd, when you look behind a patch of poison ivy, you often find a gift of jewelweed. The medicine and the melody can sometimes co-arise. There was another dynamic to this pandemic. So as more and more was learned about how the virus spreads, more and more eyes turned to the outdoors for that safety of the open air, for the peace of mind in anxious days, for the company of fellow creatures, for the sense of belonging in an order that's larger than ourselves. And historically, this is not news. It mirrors trends that have happened in every major communicable disease outbreak in American history. The Spanish flu, polio, tuberculosis. During and after each of these crises, we see this surge in open air hospitals, outdoor classrooms, more preservation, more open spaces, habits changing, architecture changing, cultural narratives changing. And I feel confident that we can anticipate a similar rise of attention to outdoor options as we enter this new murky gray period of lingering COVID, where there is certainty in almost nothing, but one thing that just keeps coming up again, up again, and up again, and up again in the research is the safety and the peace of the outdoors. So what if this could be more than a trend, is the conversation I want to have today. The difference between a trend and a movement is recognition and cooperation and intention. So what if we began naming it, framing it not as a temporary necessary mitigation, but as a great remembering and reawakening, a renaissance. Claiming it as a movement for our lives to intentionally remain more integrated with nature and our places of learning too. Because the health benefits granted by the outdoors are wider than COVID. And our need for mental and emotional resilience goes far beyond our need for relief from Zoom. The advantages of learning and living are not only medicine for this moment, but for every moment. So we could offer this place, our city, an alchemical gift, growing quietly beside tragedy and uncertainty. So for our next few hours together, let's let ourselves think big and think together about what this year has meant for us and what we truly want it to look like next. So what we'd like to do now is start moving into breakout rooms for some smaller conversations so that we can get a chance to really dive and dig into some things that we have been, that have been on our minds this year. And this first conversation, we've come up with 3 conversations that we think are pretty pivotal right now, but then we're going to ask, as we know that more ideas are going to percolate, what is on your heart? What is in your mind right now? What do you need to talk about? How can you use this group of people for your growth, for your organization? So we're going to move now into some breakout room choices, and I'll throw them up on the screen. And then with Jim's help, you'll get a chance to choose which room you'd like to talk in today. And since we're opening this up for choice, you may end up with a small group in a small conversation, or you may end up in a larger conversation. And that is absolutely okay, but feel free to move not only based on topic, but based on numbers. If you'd like more critical mass, or you'd like more, or you'd like to join a smaller conversation, you can let that. Once you choose, you can decide to adapt. Okay, so 1 second, let me open this. Okay, I'm sorry, Jim, do you mind opening the room so people can see the topics?
Sure thing. And if folks would like to do an elevator pitch of each one, I've labeled them diversity, problem solving, and did you know, but the actual titles are much longer than that.
Sure. The first one, so in room number 1, we're going to be talking about diversity in outdoor learning. This has been labeled sometimes as an intractable issue, but it absolutely is not. And Philadelphia is 100% the place where we're going to be able to model to the world what this looks like and what it looks like well. The outside belongs to everyone, but this room is a chance to talk about the barriers, that be it like accessibility, transportation, costs. How are we getting everyone outside? In the second room, we want to talk about really specifically problem solving common obstacles in this COVID era for outdoor learning. Many of us are about to launch into the summer phase of whatever it is our organization looks like. And we are in the middle of some confusing times, some mixed information. There's a lot of joint obstacles that I think that we're going to find we have in common, and that we're going to think about better together. In the third room, we're calling it Did You Know? But it's about connecting around resources from outside your personal organization that changed your game. So if you managed to make a connection or find a resource that really changed and pivoted things for your organization, it's a chance to talk about and share some of those resources that are really dear to your heart.
I give a little summary sharing, Wendy.
Yeah, sure. We were big groups, so we can go next. Obviously, 13 minutes was not enough to dive into this rich and important topic. But we did get a chance to share a little bit about barriers that we've seen. So several organizations were able to share, like, where the problems are arising in bringing, in making sure that outdoor learning is accessible to everyone. And, but not just for attendees, but we spent a lot of time also talking about staff and structures of funding, and a couple of the things that seem to make this problem intractable, but we're trying to break it down to figure out where can we get purchase and push deeper. And we talked about the role of infrastructure and transportation. We talked about the role of pay and privilege in being outdoor educators themselves. And we talked about what it means for communities to be sustainable. We talked about other, models of funding that could be powerful in helping to bring in more diverse families. And we talked about both the generation of training the generation that could be moving into like teaching and employment. We talked about the parent generation and buy-in and comfort. And we talked about accessibility for like attendees and children. But each of them very lightly. There's a lot more to talk about on each of those. Anything
Great.
else missing? Anybody want to add anything to the chat that happened in our room that? Good. So I'm doing some good further thoughts happening in the chat so that we can capture it.
Good. And we were the group, I think there were only 2 rooms, and our room was the conversation about COVID adjustments and challenges and what remains. Really nice conversation, lots of different types of educators, and so different perspectives. Talked about the program sizes, the integration of technology, trying to define our outdoor spaces more, kind of a redefinition when we're outdoors from, if we're going to stay outdoors, thinking what's shelter outside, not just what's classroom outside. and looking at who is coming to us, an opening and expanding homeschooling market, different ways of combining groups of students that we hadn't thought about before because of the prescriptive challenges, land management when we have visitors, what they leave behind, and how to both be welcoming and also reinforce what is the expectation in the space. Sorry, that's Zelda talking in the background, and also just the idea of field trips. What is a field trip anymore? Is a field trip in our own space? What does it mean when we go to other people's spaces to offer our programs? So lots of really interesting cross talk and just about as we open things up, what are the consequences of that for maintaining our spaces?
Good. And Jim, would you be able to sum up what your room?
We actually disbanded just based on the group. We decided it was more effective to go between the other two rooms.
Oh, good, right. Okay, so we divided into two. So 2 might be the right number going forward for our group.
And I do have a poll put together if that's the way folks would like to participate. So I will drop it off in the chat, but feel free, Wendy, to this and
I may pull from the chat as well.
But I did throw all the ideas just copied and pasted as they were written into a Google poll. So if folks would like to indicate which one's their favorite, please just vote on one, and then we'll get an indication of where the interests lie. And if anyone is very impassioned, feel free right now to maybe further elaborate and make your elevator pitch.
So we'll just take a quiet minute to do that real quick.
And so if you'd like to vote, feel free to expand your chat. The link is in there to a Google form, and we have 5 options to choose from, probably whittling it down to 2, but I think I've said this before. Today's event is really just a launching point, I think, to some much bigger conversations, especially after hearing some of you talk.
Okay, what's on your mind? And then when you're ready, we're going to have a little quiet think. This is not related to the issues we were just talking about in the breakout, but a chance for us to share a little bit about what openings has this era brought to your organizations, and I mean the COVID era. This has been a very weird and unusual time, and a lot of negatives, but we're going to take for a second and see if we can come up with patterns of things that happened within your organizations that were beneficial or surprising or changed your direction during COVID time. So I'm going to put a link to a Padlet in the chat for you. And has everybody used Padlet before? It's just like a sticky note. It's like a virtual sticky note. And you should be able to just click the link.
So as Wendy prepares that, when we put together this agenda, it's very packed. And so we thought we could use this time as you're reflecting. If you also need a stretch break, to use the coffee maker, whatever you need to do, please do that. And how long should we spend on this, Wendy?
We're just a little behind. So let's take until 11. Do people need a longer break? Like a longer moment to themselves? No, let's take it till 11 and then move to the next thing. Okay, so it's 11, and so what I'd like to do is just process a little bit with these answers because they're so good. Everybody had such a crazy, intense, probably some tears, but also some innovations this last year, and a lot of that is present here on the board. I'm seeing some themes come up. I'm definitely seeing the juxtaposition between what was difficult about a world of Zoom with the inclusivity that it seemed to bring, the way that it made it possible to reach out beyond our usual boundaries. I'm hearing that several people were highlighting the urgency to go outside, and definitely the rising tides, like people are going outside more often. I'm also seeing shouts out to lots of different examples of resourcefulness that individual within the community and communities themselves were showing during this time. So much reinvention happening in one period. So I'd just like to open up the floor for just a few minutes for anybody who would like to look at this and talk a little more about what openings this COVID era presented. From our perspective, just to get a ball rolling, we saw lots of organizations who previously do lots of work indoors suddenly needing a great deal of information about shelter, about sound, about how to do outdoor programming, about like how do you get your staff, move staffs to be willing to take this on. I was working in churches and nursery schools and schools, having all having the same conversation of, shoot, I want to move programs outside, but we aren't sure how to do it.
Yeah, I think that also raises, Wendy, I think there's just a great need to create trainings for teachers, parents, community members on, how to build that comfort and appreciation, how to do a lesson outdoors, right? I mean, so many teachers who haven't, had that experience, it's terrifying, that unpredictability that's so captivating to most of us here is terrifying, right? And also there's that period of, the excitement for the kids, for the kids themselves who are not used to learning and being outdoors, like suddenly transitioning to do an outdoor lesson. There needs to be kind of that understanding of building that skill, building the skills, the familiarity, all of those things. And, there's so many pieces of it beyond the content that they might be trying to teach that's more valuable, right? In terms of the skills and the sense of self and the sense of place. So I think that there's a real need there for teachers who want to do it and have no idea how. Like building steps, like maybe a walk around the city block, that's like level 1, right? And how do you, right? And what do you start to notice as you start taking these like literal and figurative small steps? So providing some kind of resource or accessibility for those teachers who want to, but don't know how or where.
Yeah, who do they go to when they want to answer those questions?
Right. And yeah, and just that also that sense of, oh, nature's over there, but I live in the city, and that like there is so much to be found on any city block, right? But just kind of knowing like how to look and where to look and what questions to ask and to build that wonder is another, I think, kind of critical piece.
The use of small spaces too, and atypical outdoor learning spaces that can still have a lot of promise. So how do urban schools maximize their ability to go outside too? And a lot of that has to happen through partnerships, I think. And so many open spaces that are like, we need people, and so many schools and other businesses that are saying, we need space.
It's just two moments that were real light bulb moments for me. Pre-COVID, the one is how often a rotting log becomes an entire lesson. And I am just floored at the mystical world you can find by peeling back some moss. Even when unplanned, I have seen such a connection with the world in such a small space that is everywhere. A reminder that we're all in nature. I might have my own space here, but we're in nature. And then the second was just how often some of my best plans are disturbed by a random visitor, a bird that wants to squawk, or a turtle that interrupts a speech. But what a blessing for us it's been. When a turtle walks past, great, let's roll with this. Or it doesn't have to be something as fantastic as a turtle, a bird cawing, and realizing that that's a warning sign because we're invading their space, even if it's in an urban setting. I thought that was very neat, and it's allowed our programs to be very portable. It's been rewarding to see students who are in, even just suburbia think they're in the middle of the woods because they get immersed in that moment.
I think 3 words that were coming to mind with this since COVID is adapting. When you're adapting to teaching, your flexibility and patience. Greatly heavy on patience and being flexible, because a log, being a distraction and focusing on a specific topic, or I think probably prioritizing, because in a classroom structure, classic classroom structure, you have that control and you have an instructoral, teacher student thing. But when you're an outdoor educator and stuff, I mean, things can get interrupted. Things can get, wow, there's a hawk that just flew over our head. We might have to talk about that to get it because it's most recently on our mind. But we've also connected a lot of things too. And I think the teachers have adapted to connect. Well, let's use that into the lesson we're trying to talk it, like bring it home and try to refocus or direct. So you have to be creative, kind of on your toes, which can be stressful for some who've never done that before, but also just taking your time and being patient with each other. With Zoom and technology, having to be patient while people talk and receive. I think that was just a good deep breath for me and my experience in our world without being so busy before COVID and having to feel all this stuff and the stress. Kind of took a step backwards and found out what really mattered during the day, or what even really mattered in life for a lot of us.
I'm going to say that one of the big lessons that I think we had was, I guess, pre-pandemic technology was our biggest enemy, the thing that we were fighting against. And I think during the pandemic, we learned that it's not necessarily so. There's many things about technology that can actually enhance what we were trying to do and expand our reach. And so now we've embraced the positive side of incorporating technology into what we do.
I think that that's a big shift. And everything that everyone is sharing is reminding me of another shift in just basically the value of teachers, I think, was recognized. And I think somebody mentioned that, and that resonated with me. But also just the value of the experience and the experience that's in this room of what does it mean to be able to take a group outside? What does it mean to keep that group safe? What does it mean to do, as Erin was describing so well, that responsive teaching style where your environment is part of your teaching team, and so it can't be ignored. It's not about like focus on me. It's about together we are focusing externally. So lots of change. We're scheduled to move on, but is there any last thoughts before we move to the next idea?
I just want to throw out, for so many public school teachers, there's such a stress to cover standards. And sometimes I sense that it's like, well, we can be outdoors, but we also have to do this, as opposed to we can be outdoors and we can do this. And so I think there's also kind of support needed of showing how being outdoors can help to meet those standards, not just be a place where you cover standards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would love to just quickly second that. I spent this last semester finishing my teacher certification at a Title I public school here in South Jersey. And it was just such a different and many layers of culture shock going from garden ed at TPS to kindergarten, public school. And that was something that I saw a lot of teachers struggling with. And I could say a lot more on it, but I just want to echo what Virginia said. It's a very different experience
and this might be of all moments, a moment where we might be able to shake a little bit of that thinking as people realize that everything that's present indoors or everything that we need to learn is actually in the outside world. Like that's a great place to learn math, a fantastic place to learn physics, a fantastic place to do writing, a wonderful place to do poetry. All the things our standards are like, we must cover, and then outdoor ed is shoved to the margins. It's a cute extra, right? But actually it's like, it's a chance to embed what we're learning into the world.
The next trick will be, how can a classroom do that when they also have remote students who are needing to be just as engaged and connected?
Yeah, exactly.
That was
How do
the
we
tricky part for me.
take that technology with us into the outdoors so that it can still be inclusive?
With a very strong hotspot.
It doesn't have to be a GoPro. They're helpful. Good. Any last thoughts?
If I can jump in for a sec, I feel like that moment, I was talking to a colleague about some students in their class really needing to do well on the standardized testing, even though we do very little of it at the Philadelphia school, in order to get into a high school that really supported them. And so like, I think some aspect of, I don't know, coming back to the diversity conversation and like, how are we making sure that pay is, you know, something people can thrive on in outdoor education? And then also thinking back to like our kids that we hope to like pass this outdoor ed torch to. I guess like, how can we like help them be successful in like this society of like late stage capitalism, and like pass the tests and get into the schools and like have the access to resources and like, you know, capital, not just money, but all the forms of capital, while also, you know, marrying the curriculum so that we're outside and ensuring that access, and also just like getting to love and listen to what is so absolutely fantastic about living and being outside and learning outside. So like, you know, I think when there's like not pressure to have to pass the test or have to do whatever the kind of gatekeeping thing is to get into the different scenes that make it like enjoyable to be outside, but bringing those two cultures together. I mean, it's not just two, I shouldn't simplify it into two, but yeah, that access and like culture outside learning piece feels like something I want to think about more with folks here and ongoing. So thanks for letting me jump in.
Yeah, so big conversations. We and then one last thought that I didn't write down that I'd like to throw out too, which is about the COVID era. I think shook something in the everyday sort of complacent way that we viewed the world, that nothing could ever change, that we were on a train that couldn't be stopped. And I think that the possibility that we might, as a group of people, be able to pause and change direction, realize we're not on a train, or if we are, we can step off the train into something more flexible, so that we can envision and the work that we're doing to connect people to nature, and how critical that is as we confront the next crisis coming of climate change. And the hope that the way that people see a mass response and what happens in the lack of a mass response might give us an opening to respond better, faster with climate change. And we're at the center of that work, trying to connect people to nature, because people love what they protect what they love. And that's what we do. And if we do not start re-examining our relationship with nature, it almost doesn't matter what our other ambitions are. So it puts what we're doing really at the center of a really, really important change for this time. So I'm going to capture all of these and make sure that they're passed on in a summary when we to all of you over an email. But keep these thoughts coming, keep this process going, keep these amazing questions coming. And so now we're just going to talk a little bit about what being connected to each other could bring, some practical steps of what does it mean to stay connected, our different ways, and a little bit about what Tom and Jim and I are thinking about the gifts that can come from that connection. Presentation button is hidden. Okay. So how do we capture this momentum, this moment where there might be room for us to really shake up the conversation locally as learning leaders here in Philadelphia? And one of the most powerful things I think is going to come out of being connected together is breaking that isolation. We are all operating in our own organizations, and some of us are operating as lone wolves within an organization that may appreciate us, but maybe not even fully understand what we're trying to bring to the organization. And others, we're all inventing the wheel this year, all by ourselves. How many different forms did we take of rethinking and rethinking and rethinking our different ways of approaching, for instance, like, should we go virtual? Are we going to be hybrid? What's going to happen? And each one of us probably invented one wheel and then invented another wheel and then invented another wheel. And what we'd like to do is break that isolation so that we're all working together and talking about what works well and what doesn't in a way that makes that null. So having a place to share, what's working, to celebrate and to give a leg up to others, because it's so motivating and so inspiring, and it will just power us further. A place to think together about and problem solve what is not working so that we're not doing that reinvent the wheel, all of us by ourselves, wasting our resources, wasting our time when we could be doing this together. Having a place to share that data we're seeing on surges and droughts of engagement that could help us all to anticipate and to understand and to put our knowledge into context of the whole area. All of these things would be really, really powerful for us to stay in a good, lively conversation going forward. The other one's to share and grow as a connected network. We have the power to talk up each other's programs. This is not about competition. This is about a rising tide lifts all boats. When individuals and families join a successful outdoor activity, they are likely to join another. They're going to tell their best friends, they're going to tell their uncles, they're going to tell their children, they're going to things. The best advertisement is relational organizing. And if we are a family, that makes our messages move faster. Also being able to create and coordinate accessible opportunities to train or certify pools of outdoor education talent that serve us all. If we have a more engaged and educated and empowered job pool because we've put some thought into what is it that we really need, it will increase the quality of all of our programming across the area. And telling the big story together, beginning the buzz. I don't know about you, but I saw probably 1,000 different articles, all done by local papers on like one local teacher or one local school or one local nature center. And the headline was always like, this teacher's breaking the box by doing it outdoors. Like, they're all by themselves. They've only thought about this. And the bigger story is getting missed. If we can begin to talk together about this, and especially if we're talking about it as a reawakening, as there's a movement happening, then those stories begin to get stitched together into the bigger story and are going to go farther. We can excite our audience to build with us. If we say, hey, we're building something, and engage our audience in that, people value what they put sweat into. I don't know if any of you ever read the Harvard Business Review did a fantastic series of papers on something called the IKEA effect, where people value more things that they help to build themselves. And so part of this movement is engaging our audience and trying to figure out how to say, you are part of making this go fly, right? You are part of that connection. You're a part of that, that engagement. You're spreading the word. You are absolutely a piece of what's making this work. And then being together may help us be empowered to exert collective pressure externally when needed. There are laws that directly affect us. I'm hearing a lot of things today about, for those of us who are in the teaching world, the struggle with standards, for instance. Is that something that we could unite on to exert a little external pressure back against, like what should they really look like, or how could this be incorporated better? Philadelphia is part of an awakening right now where I feel like we're really flexing our political power and political knowledge and awareness. And some of that can be directed towards the environment and nature and our joint causes and joint missions. So this is what we're hoping about getting together. So we're going to be asking about how you want to stay in contact, and there are several different ways that we can do that. But we want to go next to a breakout discussion. So we're going to see our new choices will pop up on the poll. Choose a conversation that you would like to join. And we're going to take about, let's say, I think we've got a good 20 minutes to spend in this one, so we can give it a little extra time. Welcome back, guys. I feel like we could have kept right on going, but I think that's the way it's always going to feel, connecting to all of you. So we're at the end of our time, but we'd love to capture a little bit more of information and attention from you about what's next. So the first thing that we'd like to do is, there's just a Google form here. And what it is focused on is, what do you want? What do you need? What is it in terms of professional development, space, program, mentorship? What are you wrestling with? And maybe you are somebody who's eager to provide in one of those spaces. Like maybe you're saying, hey, I've got a lot of space, and I'm looking for partners who want to use it. Here's just a few questions as we end, so that will help us determine, how we focus our time going forward.
Wendy, we're also going to send that out afterwards.
Yes.
Okay.
And because there are so many people who wanted to be here today who were not, who couldn't make it to this particular session, but really want to stay connected to us. So we'll be putting a lot of this out to in an email form for anyone who would like to stay connected within our email list. So why don't we just take let's say we need 3 quiet minutes to survey. I'll check in with you in 3 minutes. How's that?
while we're in our quiet time, I never actually introduced myself because I plan on being a fly on the wall. However, I can't help myself. Y'all are very engaging folks. So I'm Jim Romero, and I'm also a member of the GeoVentures team. I've worked in recreation a little over a decade now, and very excited, sort of humbled to hear about all the things that you're doing at your locations and your communities. I actually work in marketing and IT, though, as my primary job. So I guess if you have any questions on technology or people in science and technology and society, that's more my domain. I've loved listening. I'm very eager to figure out how to keep these conversations going, because in IT, there's been this conversation of, we can't go back to work the old way. I can work remotely. I'm going to work remotely. And we see that a lot with marketers that realize they don't need to go to a job in San Francisco to do their position. They don't need to be in a physical space, and they don't want to lose that. And that was my comment kind of earlier on the channel. It's like, well, there's a lot of things that are changing, and we won't get to keep the change unless we advocate for them. So I definitely see, at the very least, a launching point for those conversations starting here. And now that I'm fairly separate from the day-to-day of GeoVentures, this is sort of one of the ways I can contribute back. So if I see things in the community going, I could put my marketing or technology skills towards it.
Thank you, Jim.
And I'm glad you.
I was going to say, it's been amazing to have Jim as a fly on the wall and also as a participant. All of us who have been running these sort of conference events, it's nice to have an expert on our back here.
I'll set you up with the last slide, Tom, as people are finishing. I'm seeing a couple of responses coming in, so I figure people will be finishing in the next minute or two.
Yeah. And the goal here really is to capture the ways that already we have something to give to one another, but our goal really is over time to keep conversations going. And one thing that we believe at Montgomery School, and I have believed throughout my career, is that the worst thing in the world is a lonely, passionate educator. You don't have that collaborator in your building, you don't have that collaborator in your network, and you feel like you're desperately alone and crazy sometimes. Like, how come no one's seeing this? And the truth is that we are all seeing it, and these are collective problems that need collective action, and that we, it's just at the beginning of the threads of conversation we've had about equity and access and climate change and the big things that we know that we all take our individual steps to contribute. So I'm so grateful to Wendy and to Jim and to each of you for beginning to pull together conversations, and the fact that we had this kind of group show up on an invitation, and that there's many more that said, I would love to be there. It's just Saturday morning at 10 a.m. doesn't work for me, tells me that we're on the right track. And so how are we going to stay connected? The mailing list is first step, and please do share that link also with other folks if they weren't on our list already. We also are going to create a Facebook page. I'd say it that way because we all have our love and hate of Facebook probably, but it is a very accessible. Wendy and I talked about, like, what's sort of one click away. We don't want to make things too challenging. We may not be able to have deep conversations there, but we can create a network there, and push information out to people that are in that space. And a lot of people are bought into that space. So that's a place to start. If in the future outdoor learners of outdoor learning leaders will have another way of communicating, that's great, but we're going to start there. So please join if that's a space that you're in. And then kind of the big reveal at the end here, we'd love to do this in person. And we're looking at a late fall conference, and we're going to host that at Montgomery School. So we need you in whatever way you want to contribute to that. We'll be following up with an email. And if you have interest in leading, if you have interest in learning, obviously, if you know other voices, other leaders that you think would be good to have, I did say in person, right? That's both an optimistic and a goal-oriented statement these days. But we think that we hope that that will be a way that we can go. We'll do it virtually if we have to, but we're planning to be in person. And that will give us opportunities to demonstrate, to teach one another, and to share fellowship and encouragement for these pretty significant endeavors that we're all engaged in. So I want to thank you, and I hope that we can continue this. I'm filled with energy out of these conversations, and I hope you are too.
And people must be feeling hungry and ready to move. That's enough Zoom for a Saturday. But it's just been such a gift to be here with you all today. And I'm hoping this is the first conversation of many. And thank you all for being a part of our circle. And so please stay in touch. Have an amazing Saturday. Get some warm weather. Go to your favorite spot.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you all.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for coming. I just want to chat with everyone. This is nuts. Great.